The mindset of a police officer or someone wanting to become a police officer. What are they thinking? What are their motives? And most importantly, what made them want to become a police officer in the first place? Now, this applies to all types of work that involve some kind of authority or supposed authority over the general public. It could be politicians, police officers, doormen, military, anyone who has a role to control, watch, or direct another person. But for this video, I'm going to be sticking with police. So, a person who wants to become a police officer, what are they thinking? What made them want to become a police officer? What gave them the idea in their head that they should be a police officer? This has to do with a few things: their surroundings, where they grew up, where they gained most of their life experience, and most importantly, who gave them it. It could be parents, family, teachers, a complete stranger, or even the television screen. All of these things massively influence a person's mind, especially children and young people. This is why I think it is very important to have awareness and control over everything your child is exposed to. But I'll leave that for another video. So, to stay on topic, people gain most of their influence from their surroundings, where they grew up, where they gained most of their life experience, basically, and who gave them it. And in this day and age, majority of people spend most of their free time in front of a television screen. And when I say television, I mean all types of screen display: TV shows, movies, the cinema, video games, and even the computer, YouTube, and the internet. It's still all displayed on a screen, and this is where people will gain most of their influence. It's quite obvious. This is where they'll get their ideas, their ambitions. This is where people see the world. Majority of people don't actually go out and see the world for themselves. They see the world as how it's being presented on these display screens. So if anyone or any group of people were to ever control the flow of information that goes through these display screens, they could influence and even control the thoughts of people's minds. So to anyone who thinks that movies and video games don't alter people's minds, you're completely wrong. But again, I'm sidetracking another video. Now, when I was younger and watching TV, back then there was no internet, but I remember being exposed to quite a lot of police propaganda. There was also a lot of other influences I was exposed to, but like I said, for this video I'm sticking with police. My childhood was back in the 90s, and the very first police TV show I remember was a program called The Bill. This was a this was a show. It was a fictional show about a police department based somewhere in England, and there was many TV programs like this, fictional and with real events, like Police Camera Action, Cops, Road Wars, and most of these programs and similar ones are still on TV today. And that's not to mention the movies, video games, and now with the internet, there is an unlimited list of videos and programs that people's minds can absorb. Well, back then I had a particular friend around my age. We couldn't have been any older than 10. He used to watch these TV programs, and the next day he would always come out and speak about them, police, and how he wanted to become one. I always used to remember him riding down the street on his bike, making police siren noise from the top of his lungs. And that's just an example of how these TV shows and similar things like it influenced this child's mind. Does that mean he would come to be a police officer when he's older? No, of course not. But it's still influencing the mind. It's putting thoughts and ideas into the mind of what and how a police officer should be and their role upon society. But this is also going to influence mature minds, not just children. Anyone who is exposed to these programs, these video games, these movies, are still going to be having all of their thoughts and ideas that are being presented in whatever they are watching passing through their mind, conscious or subconscious. The mind still absorbs it whether you agree upon it or not. And what I have come to notice is the police in all of these TV shows, videos, movies, and computer games, they all come across as authoritarian with a level of power and control over other people, and this is where the ego comes into play. The the majority of people who are sitting around watching all of these display screens are generally average people with not much going on in their lives. Not that there is anything wrong with that, but the majority of people today, with their huge egos, all striving to be better than one another, they're all out there looking for something that will make them feel better. And they see these police officers that they have been watching with power and respect, something which their ego feeds off, and they want it. But at the same time, people also begin to fear police officers as they are being depicted with authority and control. And once these ego driven people have come to realize this, that is when the idea manifests into their mind. What if I can become a police officer? Some of them become police officers and some of them don't. And the ones that do have a huge ego boost which makes them feel good every time they are on the job, and some of them get that much of a boost that their life becomes the job, which is kind of sad, but this is how the ego works. And the longer they have been in this job and the more interactions they have with people, they start to look down at the general public or anyone they're dealing with as inferior, and somehow they are better because of this position they have. And I see this all of the time. Police stopping and pulling over people and speaking to them like filth or with just no respect at all. And the people, they take it and give into everything the police officer is demanding, even if the police has no right in asking a certain question or demanding them to do something which they don't have to do. And the people, they do this because, for one, they don't know their rights and they don't know the limited powers of a police officer, and they're also scared of the consequences of not doing what the police officer demands, whether it's within the law or not. Again, because they have been watching these display screens of police officers depicted with authority and power, and the average person, the average innocent person, is scared of that. So they fear police officers, they are nervous when they are around them, and these ego driven police officers walk around unchallenged by innocent people, and they start to notice that. They start to notice that the average person they interact with is scared or nervous whenever they are around them. And again, this gives them a nice ego boost, and this is when you get police officers walking around doing whatever they want. You only have to go onto YouTube and see the plenty of videos of just how these ego-driven police officers act. They have a responsibility. They should act professional with respect all of the time, not just when it suits them, and a lot of them nowadays don't. They see themselves higher up on some imaginary food chain, when in reality they are no better than anyone else, clinging onto the police force for their dreamed up existence. Now, am I saying every police officer or anyone wanting to become one is an ego-driven, immature mind wanting power and respect and only going into the police force for personal gain? No, I am not. There are still a decent number of police officers out there, I think mainly older ones that grew up in a different generation, that still have respect and do their job professionally, but they're an ever declining number. The average person still thinks that police officers are honest, hard-working, respectful people, and this was one of the main reasons why I made this video, because there is nothing further from the truth. I mean, if you were to ask me this question 80 years ago, I would have had a completely different answer. People had respect for each other back then. All of that's gone now, and most people are only out to gain for themselves. So from all that said, I've came to the conclusion that the mindset of an ego-driven police officer is an immature mind that wants power and respect, and only uses the police force to get this power and respect. They care little of solving and fighting crimes. That just comes with the job, and they are more in it for personal gain than to try and help anyone or the community. And it's these types of people that should not be in the police force. They are immature, and their ego and pride comes before the responsibility. If the police force continues to recruit these types of people, can you imagine where society is going to be in 20 or 30 years time? You may as well just give gangs police powers and let them run the streets. In fact, no, it'd be even worse. It's just a shame people don't realise this.